Welcome to Politics Done Right. I am your host, Egberto Williams. This is the progressive program that will take the mystery out of politics. This is the program that will encourage you to make sure government becomes we the people. Whether you are liberal, conservative, or otherwise, you get to air your point of view. Remember, you can also send me a tweet to EGBERTOWILLIES. That is, at Egberto Williams. Let us engage. It is politics done right.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Well, folks, welcome to one more edition of Politics Done Right. I'm Egberto Williams, your host. Thank you so kindly for being a part of the show. We're going to have a great show for you as usual. You know we are going to, but before I get any further, you know what my big ask is. Folks, if you are watching us on Facebook Live, please make sure to share this on your page. Please make sure to share this on your page. It is so important. You know, we talk about not getting the kind of news you see. Yesterday was dominated by Roseanne Barr. But, you know, did they tell you what was going on in the background? Did they tell you that they were screwing with your health care? Did they tell you they were screwing with your student loan? Did they tell you all these things that are occurring in the background? No, they did not. They just spoke about the entire day. The entire day was Roseanne Barr spewing a racist statement that she's used to, and that they canceled her show. Da-di-da-di-da-di-da-di-da. Tell me, how does that have an effect on your personal economy? How does that have an effect on you that they spent that amount of time talking about this particular issue that will have nothing, absolutely nothing to do with how you pay your kids' college, with how you pay your mortgage, with how you pay anything else? That is what we have on mainstream media. They have all the resources in the world. They have hundreds of channels on TV, but still we only hear Roseanne Barr and these issues. That is why we need multiple networks, multiple individuals, multiple folks giving you news that you can really use and make something of. Today we're going to talk about the infighting in the progressive movement and how do we get around that. I have a hell of a lot of suggestions as far as what we need to do and how we need to be, because, folks, again, it's not enough. None of this is coming from the mainstream media. Today, again, all they're talking about is Trump's reaction. Yesterday was all about Roseanne Barr. Today's all about Trump's reaction to Roseanne Barr. Welcome aboard, Bruce Pollard. Welcome aboard, Michael Rudnin. And I don't have the rest scrolled down, but welcome aboard. So it is important, folks, for you to go ahead and share this program on your page, on your wall, on your Twitter, on your Tumblr, on your Instagram, on your Yellow Man. I forgot what's the name of the Yellow Man, but share it everywhere. And before I get started, I have to remind you guys that this is a progressive show that needs your support. What we ask folks to do is, if you have the wherewithal to do so, please become a member. Patreon.com/politicsdoneright. Patreon.com/politicsdoneright. That is patreon.com/politicsdoneright. We don't only ask you to be a supporter of our program, a supporter of Politics Done Right, which is next to nothing, but we do it ourselves. We're a supporter of the dailycoast.com, opednews.com, coffeepartyusa.com, and many others. I draw a blank sometimes when I'm calling all these guys out. And we're asking that we do the same thing here, because it is so important that we don't only get news from the mainstream media, because as I watch CNN right here on the lead, there we go again, on subjects that have little to do with your economic material interests, with the things that bothers you the most, with the things that are most important to your life. Welcome aboard, Jimmy Spice, I believe is the name. Welcome aboard, everybody that's coming on, including those that I've missed. Again, folks, if you're just getting here, please go ahead and share this program on your Facebook page, your Facebook wall, and everywhere you can, including tweeting it. That is how we move the movement forward. That is how we get to have our listeners grow, and not only grow, but make a difference. That's what we're doing this for. We're not doing this for the sake of talking. We're not doing this for anything other than making a difference in our body politic. Again, that is making a difference in our body politic. Please also remember, this is a call-in show. The call-in number is 646-716-5812. Again, that number is 646-716-5812. Reporting is important. Having the news media available is important. Having your local news is important. And in that regards, I have Avi from KPFT on KPFT Houston, which is a part of the Pacifica Network station. These are stations that are located throughout the country, California, New York, D.C., and many, many hundreds of affiliates who take on their programs. Politics Done Right has the honor as well of being on the Pacifica Network, specifically on KPFT 90.1 FM in Houston, Texas, which we do live every Thursday at 3 p.m. at the Pacifica Network studios at KPFT 90.1 FM in Houston, Texas. Avi, welcome to the program. We're going to talk a little bit about local news before we go on to the gist of today's program, which is, hey, progressive, you got to stop the damn infighting. You got to stop it. How are you doing, Avi?
Hey, Egberto, I'm doing really well, and I can tell from the sound of your voice that you are upbeat, energetic, and optimistic, which is not something that I usually hear when I'm listening to talk radio. You know, everybody's angry, everybody's just assuming the worst, but, you know, when I tune into your show, I hear your voice, which is energetic, but it's not angry, and you are inviting people to speak, but, you know, you're not shooting them down, you're listening to people. And I hear that whenever I tune into your program. So before I even get to my whole issue, the reason I called, I just wanted to thank you as a kind of casual listener to the energy that you bring to talk radio. Thank you very much.
Well, look, thank you so kindly for the kudos, but let me tell you about anger and let me tell you about upbeat and let me tell you about positive affirmations. Anybody who knows me, whether they're friend, family, foe, or whatever, one of the phrases that I always like to use with these folks with all folks is positive affirmation. In other words, I give you my positive affirmation. And the reason I do that is this. Look, we're all human beings. We're all in the same boat together, whether some people realize it or not. And I think what is very, very important is for us to realize that everybody's humanity. If we do that, ironically, it doesn't matter that we have ideological differences. If you take a look into my room here on the Facebook Live, I have conservatives that are dedicated to Politics Done Right, and they are here every day to listen to Politics Done Right, to be a part of Politics Done Right, to give an alternative view to Politics Done Right. And I love these guys just like I love all my liberal friends. And what I try to do is I try to bring out what our beliefs in there and try to give the fact-based reasons for our beliefs. And, you know, I think in the dialogue, that is where we all come together. And not only that's where we come together, but that is how we realize each other's humanity, which is what the plutocracy does not want. What I realize, and I know I'm going on a bit, but given that you mentioned that, I want to stress something to all our listeners, whether conservatives, liberal, agnostic, libertarian, or whatever. It is in the interest of our plutocracy, and we do have a plutocracy, an oligarchy. You can call it whatever you want. We have a class of people that realize that they cannot survive because it's such a small amount of them that are taking over all our wealth, etc. It's such a small amount of them. Welcome aboard, Tom Hines. It's such a small amount of them, and Jimmy Bryce, that if they don't keep us divided and keep our attention attacking each other, then we all, left and right, would realize that the problem doesn't lie between the difference in ideologies of left and right, but that of what these guys are doing to actually keep us divided. And that is what I try to get across in this show. I'm a proud left-wing progressive. You can call it whatever you want, but also I'm a great respecter of my right-wingers. I'm a great respecter of my conservative buddies. Come on in, Avi. Tell us a little bit about what you wanted to talk about.
Thank you. Well, you mentioned positive affirmation, and you mentioned what the plutocracy wants, and you know these are enemies or you know bad guys that you can identify and point them out. There's actually a different kind of enemy that I have a hard time finding who to blame or even realizing what to do, and it has to do with our local. You know, and not just in Houston, but in cities across the country, and maybe even the world. But just the the decline of local news reporting. And I'm not just saying that as a pitch for the KPFT news program. I'm saying that as kind of something that is happening. People say it's because of the internet. People say it's because of, ad revenues going digital. People say it's because, what other things related to the internet. But here in Houston, we had just after the Astros won the World Series earlier this winter, we had the Houston Press, which is a local alternative magazine newspaper that came out in print. It used to come out in print, and because of environmental issues like Harvey, because of everything that's going on with news media consolidation, they had to basically shut down their print operations. And this is, you pick up a copy of the Houston Press. Yes, there's a lot of advertising in there. Yes, there's a lot of entertainment, music, culture. But the one thing that they had that our city needs and that all cities need is local investigative reporting that really holds politicians' feet to the fire, and people who are movers and shakers, really shines a light on what they are doing, and puts it out there for everybody to read. And the reason I'm bringing this up now, you think, go ahead.
Yeah, before you go further and talk about the importance of that, because you're absolutely right that it's important that we keep these papers. They suffer the same problem that all online magazines, online websites, blogs that are trying to give information suffer from, and that is our base have a tendency not to support these issues. Local papers, local news, bloggers, not only bloggers, but even aggregators of news, et cetera, et cetera. And what happens is, I think the initial modal was they didn't need to, so people didn't see an interest that they had to have personal skin in informing themselves. In other words, they knew that there were advertisers wanting to see their eyeballs. So because the advertisers wanted to see their eyeballs, the advertisers were willing to put their monies everywhere that people's eyeballs were, which is local newspaper as well as local magazines as well as bloggers, et cetera, et cetera. Well, the paradigm is shifting, Avi, and it affected politics done right. It affects, as you taught me about today, the Houston Press, dramatically. As an example, there was a time when politics done right could generate all of its income from all the websites that we have that are promoting news that, several articles that you probably won't see elsewhere or whatever. People could come and see all these articles without a problem, or read all these things without a problem, because advertising revenue took care of that. When we talk about a plutocracy now, we're talking about consolidation. And what we've seen the Facebooks of the world and the Googles of the world do is cater the advertising more to the big guys, which means the smaller guys, the guys who are more independent, get a very small share. As an example, for politics done right, we've lost 90% of our ad revenues. 90%. So what I'm trying to tell folks is that you have to understand that if you really want alternative news, and when we say alternative news, we mean real news. If Avi, you're at KPFT, when we are all at KPFT and Fund Drive, how difficult it is. How we go out there to try to explain to folks why we must have a KPFT local community radio station. I try to foment or try to get an audience here to give the reasons why a Politics Done Right program is essential, as well as a TYT and all the other programs, internet programs of this sort, because of the monopolization that is occurring throughout the country, where just a few control what you get to see and what you get to hear. It's like yesterday. You could watch no news yesterday and not hear just mostly Roseanne Barr. In every cycle, it was Roseanne Barr, Roseanne Barr, Roseanne Barr. But at the same time, your student loan, the rates are going to go through the roof because of what the finance secretary is doing. Nobody's talking about it. I've written about it in my blogs. But guess what else happened now? Because what I explained about advertising, That article that I wrote on student loans got little traction because of what Facebook has done with throttling. If you notice, when I start the program today, I said, folks, please go ahead and share right away, because we need you to tell Facebook, because we are not the big guys, that you are interested in this program. And then the algorithm will say, oh, there must be some interest here. It is okay for us to go ahead and put this out. So, Avi, there's a whole lot of dynamics happen here. Most of these dynamics are scrupulous. Most of them, actually, the plutocracy loves. Continue and tell us now, Avi, why it is so necessary for us to have the local news and the programs like Politics Done Right and all these other guys around there.
I mean, there's so the main source of my information today, I saw it online on dig.com, a report put out by CityLab. This is an organization, a subsidiary of the Atlantic magazine, Atlantic Media Group, and they study cities, what makes cities work, what makes cities not work, when they're, what kind of politicians are elected and what effect does that have. So they're this group that does a lot of research into cities, and they found that when local newspapers close, and I'm sure that's expanded to mean just any local news coverage, city finances suffer. So one way to look at this is that as soon as there isn't anyone there to shed light on what's going on at City Hall, even at the local level, forget about Roseanne Barr. I mean, that's going to grab everybody's attention because there's a whole historical element to it. Everybody knows the show Roseanne. I'm talking about it, and I've never even really seen the show. But when local newspapers and when local news coverage stops, city finances suffer. So that's, we're borrowing more, we're spending more, we're being more risk-taking as a city because there's no one there to sort of watch us and say, are you sure you should be doing that? No one there to provide continuous coverage, to go to the meetings and still have a living wage and earn money, support families, enjoy life, and be there at these meetings where decisions are made. And not just that, we have people being sent to jail or being sent to death row, and if there's nobody there to report on that, and maybe lend an extra hand that the police don't have the time or resources to offer, or the city doesn't have the time or resources to offer, scrutinizing finances more. That is the job and the service that local news coverage provides, and we don't see that with these big the big guys that are busy covering Roseanne and President Trump. They don't have the time and resources. So and this is why, you're talking about the plutocracy. They definitely benefit from this, but I don't really know, what to do besides like KPFT does, or like what you do, which is appeal to your listeners and say, please support us. You can't hide behind the free market anymore because these essential services are dying. And this is stuff that the Houston Press did. They actually were able to find out and help this guy in their early days in the 90s, help someone who was going to be sentenced to death. But because they were able to scrutinize and find out what happened with this person, what happened with their trial, they were able to determine the truth. Right. And save a person's life.
Let me tell you,
that's the extreme, the boring.
Right. No, it's not boring at all. And some listeners initially will say yes, but when they are in need, then they'll come to you. But here's the thing that you just mentioned, and I think is very important. You said, KPFT appeals to people to come. Please go ahead and support us. Politics Done Right does do the same thing. That is what we have to do, right? But what we also have to do is build communities. And we are doing that at coffeepartyusa.com. And when I say build communities, I mean, right here at Politics Done Right, we are building a community. We are building a community of people who are consistent Politics Done Right listeners, sharers. Some of them do it live. We have a ton of them that do it through the podcast and otherwise. And the thing about it is, it's about continuously growing it and not taking folks for granted when to get these things to go ahead and build what a community is supposed to be. And what a community is a give and take. As an example, with Politics Done Right, my listeners, today's subject, you know what I told you today's subject is. Today's subject is about progressives working together and trying to minimize the infighting. But you called up and earlier, just 5 minutes before the show, and said you wanted to talk about something about local news. And like I tell everybody who listens to Politics Done Right belong to the folks who listen. Politics Done Right belong to the folks who are subscribers, those who are not able to be subscribers, those who are promoters, everybody. It belongs to the people. So what, in your case, you wanted to come out and make a strong case for, hey, what do we do about local media? And in effect, we're modifying the format to support what you wanted. And anybody in the room would tell you the same. That's what our show is all about. And that's the difference in having the type of shows that we have compared to, let's say, the MSNBC or the ABC, who dictates what you are. They dictate what they command you to know. We have a plan as far as what we think you should know, but you also have a right to tell us what you think we should be promoting. And I think once we start to create those communities that behave in this manner, not only crowdsourcing, which is very, very productive. Crowdsourcing is one of the best ways to collect information. I have some of the best crowdsourcers that are in this room all of the times. Crowdsourcing, multiple people looking at different angles of things. That is what we have to tell people they have access to when they support not only local but independent media. And you have to make that case, Avi, like I'm sure you're going to make that case in July when KPFT is back in fundraising mode, like you're doing right here on another program, Politics Done Right, outside of KPFT. So I think we are taking the steps. It's not an easy step, but it's not a slow step, but it's something that gets done. Give me a response so that I can get into the show on progressives, my friend.
Can I ask you a tough question?
Anytime.
Okay. Because you mentioned, we've been talking about the big guys, MSNBC, CNN, Fox, whatever. One thing that we have, and by we I mean this community that you've built and that overlaps with KPFT and, just part of this area, one thing that we have that they don't is Egberto Willies.
Oh.
So my question is, you live in Houston. Mm-hmm. It is crazy here. You get on the road anytime between 3 p.m. and 7 p.m. You're lucky to get home alive.
Right.
My question is this, and you don't have to have an answer right now, but what happens if Egberto Willies gets hit by a bus or something? What is Politics Done Right? What is Coffee Party USA? What is KPFT even? What is our plan? What is our long-term plan to ensure the continuity of this community? Because the one thing that we have that nobody else does is Egberto Willies.
Oh, wow. Don't make my head get big, my friend. But let me tell you something. No person is an island, right? That is reality. Life goes on. And I never consider myself an island at all in this space, because the space is really everybody in the space. And the truth of the matter is, if I drop dead tomorrow, Politics Done Right is available to somebody else to pick up and run with it. I mean, I can look in my room right now, and I can look at somebody called Michael Rudnin. I can look at somebody called Bruce Pollard. I can look at a lot of people in here that could, if they decided that they wanted to invest the time that I invest in doing this stuff, they'll just sit their butts down and do the same. My brother, here's the deal. One of the things I want to get out there is that my dependency is on everybody, and everybody's dependency is on each other. And the one thing I will never, ever, ever, ever become or believe is that somehow this movement is me at all. The movement is us. If anybody that works with me, that is what we always talk about. It has to be that way, because you are absolutely right. I could drop dead tomorrow. But you know what? The way I think we've done things together, it'll go on. That's the name of the game, my friend. Anything else, my dear friend?
No, that's it. Thank you so much, Egberto.
Thank you so kindly for being on the show, Avi. And look, keep getting things going. continue to help KPFT in doing the things that it has to do, my friend. Continue to do that, please. Okay, folks, let's continue with the program. Today we're going to talk progressives, my dear friends. Today we're going to talk progressives. But beforehand, we're kind of, it's not time for that yet. So we'll go ahead and do what we know we have to do, and that is to start the show as soon as I can use my fingerprints to get the show going. Okay, so what are we going to talk about today? Today, the title of the show is How Do We Stop the Progressive Infighting to Ensure We Start Winning? There probably is 95 subtitle. There's probably is 95% agreement on issues with progressive activists, yet improper infighting can derail sure victories, which is what is about to happen if we don't get our act together in this November. Because right now, if you take a look at the ballot, the ballot, the general ballot, or what do they call I forgot what kind of ballot they call it, that tells the generic ballot is saying we are even. Republicans and Democrats are now even, which means if it's even, Republicans keep the House. Republicans keep the House, Republicans keep the Senate, and we will be terrorized for another 2 years. Anyhow, this week I cross-blogged a piece by my friend and fellow activist. Her name is Eleanor Goldfield, publisher of Art Killing Apathy and host of Act Out. I made the piece the blog of the week. It is time for the progressive activists to stop the type of infighting that loses elections and policy debates. I know when I say this, some people are going to say, but Egberto, aren't you the one that always give the Democratic Party a hard time about the establishment? Isn't that infighting? That's not the infighting I'm talking about. And let me explain what I'm talking about. There's the establishment, and for those of you who listen to the show, we talk about the left rail and the right rail. They're really going in the same direction. So really how different they are, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Well, that's what I'm talking about. I'm talking about swing left fighting with, let's say, some other, with the environmentalists fighting with those who want to have a carbon in cars, or those liberals who want nuclear power because they say it is a zero emission power source, even though it can be dangerous if it gets out of hand, and they spend all of their times fighting on these issues, consequential, but generally not existential. But what progressives have in common are the things that are existential: a social state, a state that protects everyone, a state built for everyone, a state where folks are not taken advantage of. Those are the things we have in common. But if we go ahead and fight over, and I resist calling it petty differences, because those who want nuclear power as opposed to those who just want green power, those are real important issues. Are they existential? Well, some would say the nuclear issue is existential. I don't think it is existential, really, because I still believe in a certain generic containment, but that goes beyond. But before we get to the blog of the week, let me just go ahead and give you some little quick news snippets. We have from CBS News, the owner of Chick-fil-A, location in Sacramento, California, calls it a living wage. In Eric Mason's view, that should be $17 or $18 an hour, which is what he vows he will pay his workers starting Monday, June the 4th. Here it is. Somebody decided, forget about waiting for laws. I am going to start paying my employees a minimum wage of $17 or $18 an hour. The rate represents a sizable increase from the employees who now make $12 to $13 an hour. As the owner, I'm looking at it at the big picture and long term, Mason told a local news channel. What that does for the business is provide consistency, someone that has a relationship with our guests, and it's going to be building a long-term culture. The idea, Mason said, is to hire workers. He prefers hospitality professionals who will stick around. And if you get an $18 to flip burgers, I guarantee you're going to stick around, of course, until McDonald's has to match and pay $18. Then you may switch between McDonald's and Chick-fil-A and the others. But that is what a living wage does. And it won't matter, because people are going to now have the money to spend and buy even more burgers and even more Chick-fil-A's. And you can raise the prices a little bit so that you can take care of everybody. Anyhow, the idea, Mason said, is to hire workers. He prefers hospitality professionals who will stick around. A worthwhile goal for a brand known to its customer service that its industry that has 73% turnover rate in 2016. According to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, what are we going to do? We're looking for this is trying to raise families. We want people who can raise their families. And a quick second story by Al Jazeera. Flags and banners fluttered above a steady stream of protesters who chanted anti-austerity slogans as they marched through the streets of Greek capital. On Wednesday, thousands of Greek workers, union members, migrant labor, students, pensioners, and unemployed people flooded Athens city center to hold a general strike against the government's ongoing austerity regime. Organized by labor unions, the 24-hour nationwide strike paralyzed public transportation in much of the country, disrupted flight schedules, and prevented many ships from setting sail. Subways and metros were halted, and several flights were grounded. Shops, restaurants, offices, and schools were shuttered throughout the capital, and public services were paused for the day. Nikos Papangergiou, a member of the communist-linked PAME Union's executive committee, stood in front of a massive crowd of striking union members in Omnia Square. This is our 9th year of crisis, and the general picture for the working class in Greece is terrible. With high unemployment and low wages, he told Al Jazeera, behind him, hundreds of PAME flags trembled above the protesting workers. Our demands aren't just higher salaries, but basic human rights for workers. What are we trying to say here, folks? And why did I read a story that is in Greece? Greece is our future. And progressives, we don't have the time to fight each other because we are becoming Greece. We're talking about full employment and we still can't get raises. We still can't get wages high enough. We're talking about full employment and we still can't get good health care that we can afford. These are things that progressives have to be fighting for. Lest we become Greece. At least Greece, they can go to the hospital even when they don't have a job. But here in the United States, it's going to be worse. We don't have time to be bickering among each other. So let's go ahead and start with you know what time it is. And I usually say it this way. Do you know what time it is?
It's time for the weekly blog post.
Está bien, mis amigos. Está bien, mis amigos. Here we go. Every progressive, liberal, and left-winger need this advice. Progressive, liberal, and left-wing activists have a severe problem, a very serious problem. It's a problem I like many are guilty of at some level. We tend to have unnecessary infighting over purity tests, methods, and more. So how do we solve this dilemma? How do we stop saying, you know what? If we don't do it this way, you're not liberal, you're not progressive, we can't vote for you. I digress from this for a minute to remind all the advice that I was given for our contest here in Texas and elsewhere. I fought like hell or promoted like hell those who I thought were the most progressives in these primaries. And I've made also a promise. In the general, I will vote for the most progressive person on the ballot. If that person is a Democrat, they get my vote. It's unlikely that they're Republican, but if there is a Republican progressive that are spewing progressive mantra, they intend to go out there and link with any other progressive to move this country forward. I cannot officially say it as an officer of the Democratic Party, but my fingers just may slip and do the right thing. Look, folks, progressivity is the only thing right now that's going to save the middle class. What the plutocracy want is us fighting among each other so that we cannot see the big picture. They want me fighting with Brother Ledo in this room here. I will never fight with Brother Ledo, who is a right-winger. I'm going to keep talking to Brother Ledo. Because, again, the big guys, they're not out to get me as a left-wing liberal. They're not out to get Ledo as somebody who thinks he's a right-winger. They just want to make sure that they maintain power for the few they decide has the honor, the 1%, the honor to be there, as they then give the next 10% the keys to the gate to protect them. So that's the kind of gradations we have in this country, right? We have the 1% who are the gods, the puppeteers, they do everything. Then you have the 10% who make just enough quite good money they make. And they don't want to lose that. And they think that their way not to lose that is to make sure that the next 20% are somewhat okay, but don't mess with it, baby. And then we don't need to give a rat's ass about the other 60% or so, or 70%. Enough of us are doing well. Enough of those down there don't have much upstairs to realize who really is the enemy. So we will create the enemy for them. We will tell them who the enemy is. And until progressives realize that the fight isn't among us, but the fight is with those on top to prevent them from programming those below the 30%. We have to do we have to learn this. Anyhow, continuing. The infighting between progressive liberal and left-wing factions must morph into a more productive stance where complete congruity is not the only license for entry. My friend and fellow activist Eleanor Goldfield, publisher of art Killing Apathy and host of Act Out, wrote a piece titled Mind the Stopgap that every progressive activist should read. Her first few sentences says it all. And, I wanted to have her on. I didn't call her up. I just decided to use her piece about 2 hours ago because I was reading over what was the best piece to cover this material. And then I said, I just read Eleanor's piece, and Eleanor's piece was just the right tone. Anyway, she said the following. The left loves to argue, infighting, and petty tiffs about purity tests and religious-style righteousness hang like smog over so-called safe spaces, suffocating collaborations. One wonders sometimes whether or not the goal for many leftist individuals and organizations is not to fight for progress, but rather to fight about it. And this is not to say that there isn't vital work that is being done. There are so many powerful initiatives to both fight and build, ones that sidestep the privileged place of theoretical mind space and get stuff done. And she didn't say stuff. The problem is that because many people lack a feeling of urgency. You see, that is her first few sentences. A lot of people lack the sense of urgency because a lot of these folks are in that top 10, 20, 30%, and they're, even if they're not doing great, they're doing just fine. So the urgency isn't there. Many of us who have the time to be activists, many of us who have the wherewithal to be activists, yes, we can be activists, but the urgency a lot of times is not there because we are not really embedded into those that we're trying to protect, defend, or support. But for a lot of those people, it is that much harder, it's that much more difficult, it's that more existential. And that is where, as activists, we have to leave our prides behind, leave the perfection behind, leave the purity behind, and realize what we're really fighting for and who we're really fighting for. And I'm going to tell you, as somebody who lives, who lives here in Kingwood or whatever, sometimes it takes driving into communities and talking to folks and seeing how folks really are doing for it to show you how, in many cases, existential, again, that word, it is. There are too many times at progressive meetings where more time is spent discussing interpersonal engagement protocols and purity tests that by nature are subjective instead of jumping into the problem at hand. That is not to say these are not important, but they should never supersede the task at hand. I remember there's a guy, I won't call his name out, but he's a well-known Black Lives Matter activist. He had a rant on Facebook that really touched me. And the reason it touched me wasn't that I was going along with his anger, but one thing he said, you guys are judging me, you guys are trying to tell me what to do, until you are out there with that mother who has a kid who the cops just beat the crap out of. And I go down there and put my body at risk to try to help that kid. You don't have the right to tell me that my way is the wrong way because it follows or misses some protocol. And when he said that, and then he also said something about staying behind a keyboard or just staying behind a bullhorn or something. And when I heard that, I kind of looked at myself as somebody who's always, on radio, on Facebook Live, or elsewhere, and I had to self-examine as well. And in my self-examination, I said, oh, well, at least I was out there in St. Louis. At least I was out there in these other places doing my little part. But all of us can't do it all. All of us can't be at every movement. And I personally, I finally came to the realization that this is my avenue, and where I have to be in the field, I'll go to the field, but this is how I can best serve. He can best serve doing what he does. But those that just sit back and critique, at that point, they need to do something else. Be contributors, be something else, but do something positive, as I mentioned with Avi earlier. Positive affirmation, do positive things. There are two, continuing. She issues an example she uses that shows, why we can't really have that purity test kind of a thing. She uses an example. She uses the cell phone. The net good of using that cell phone does not mitigate the oppression, environmental irresponsibility, and the economic degradation for many built into its manufacture, but it is sure a worthwhile and necessary compromise. I mean, after all, we use that cell phone to organize. We use that cell phone to communicate. We use that cell phone for just about everything. She points out, importantly, the compromises we have no choice making. She says, the purity test mentally is tied to the absolutist paradigm that suggests there can only be one path, one way of organizing, of fighting, of building, but that's a fallacy. The fight for universal health care and the building of a small autonomous clinic in Puerto Rico are not mutually exclusive. They're different, but they're not mutually exclusive. So one shouldn't say we have to fight this one and not the other. Not the other. They are different answers to the same problem. Answers that may someday overlap or not. Neither one is ultimate and neither one is perfect, because again, if you think you have the perfect path, I'll never look perfect when manifested in reality. Stuff happens. Human folly and mistakes happen. Hell, our own hypocrisy happens. Indeed, our very push for anti-capitalist progress in a capitalist system demands a certain level of hypocrisy. After all, we sell things in sort of a capital market to fund our moves. As she said, we use the cell phones. We love the cell phones. We depended on the technology that created the cell phones. So nothing is absolute. It's hybrid. Right? Now, I have a phone made from conflict materials. I pay taxes that go to war and destruction. Some of the plastic in the ocean is undoubtedly mine, she says. And then she mitigates those necessary choices. Very important. I will always try to mitigate my damaging footprint, but I have to also keep walking. So really, we all fail the purity test. All of our paths are imperfect, jagged, and utterly human. Instead of arguing over whether or not someone who eats meat can be an environmentalist, lock arms and block some bulldozer instead of wasting time screwing around on people or fight. I had to get rid of some of her obscenities that I don't use on my program. Okay, but her writing is great. Who fighting for what you consider to be stopgap measures. Show solidarity and continue on with your work, our work. Because really the truth is that we need each other, and not in some kumbaya ethereal way, but in a really straightforward, no BS. This is a capitalist crisis, and we have work to do kind of a way. And she poignantly concludes the following. Debate, analysis, and critique should always be welcome and considered. So don't be scared to argue. Don't be scared to fight. But damn it, when you leave that room, as she says, lock arms. We're moving the progressive mantra forward. Infighting should be shut down like a pipeline construction site. We should question our work and invite others to do the same, be it specific tactics or overarching questions as to who will benefit from our work. We should be clear on what we're fighting for so that we're not just fighting for lip service or facade solutions. And if you feel that systemic stopgap measures or facade solutions, let's have that conversation, but let's have that off the side, off to the side. We can do that. We don't make that the thing that the news media is going to cover at 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, and 10 o'clock. Oh, there is indivisible Houston fighting with swing left. There is swing left fighting with PSR. There's PSR fighting with the Democratic Party. There's a Democratic Party fighting with some crazy anarchy. We don't do that. What we do, when we're out there, it's a united front. When we have issues, we solve them together from an analytic point of view. Even if we have to go into a single room with a blackboard, olden days blackboard, or today some form of electronic interchange. But that's what we do. We don't need to corrupt the movement by creating animosities. We have to realize that we don't all think the same. We don't all think the same solutions apply. And if we don't think the same solutions apply, we must all have the freedom to work in a manner, even if at times independently, for the same goal. But we all should never stop one another. And she ends, but let's have that off to the side and not in the path of progress. After all, what are we if not progressives? What are we if not progressives? Now, let me just give a little 1 minute soliloquy here as far as how personally I deal with groups. First of all, with a hell of a lot of humility. There is a hell of a lot of things I think I know. There are a hell of a lot of things I think would be done better. But guess what? Those are the things Egberto Willies believe. I am one person. I've learned over time, when working within groups, give the gravity of the group its due. Give the gravity of the group its due. Allow the group to create its own personality. Be of many groups. Be a part of many groups, because what you'll find is all the things that you think are the things that need to be done, the things that must be done, the things that will be done. You're probably not going to get it in one group, because one of these progressive groups, because everybody don't think alike. But what you'll find is that all that you think is necessary to get the movement going forward, you can still attain your points, because in the family of groups that you're a part of, your thought process is realized en masse, if it is right. But let me tell you something. Crowdsourcing is one of the best ways to do things. And if you are a member of many progressive groups, and you find that you have ideas that are that all of them find untenable, there's a good possibility your idea is untenable, in as much as you may be married to it. Have I found issues like that? Yes. Will I speak about them now? No. But humility is a very important place to be when you're in these groups, and also temper what you think is any type of superior intellect, because a crowd source of people that are really into thinking. I'm not saying just pulling folks off the street or something like that, because there are two kinds of crowds. There's a mob, and then there's crowdsourcing. I'm not talking about the mob. I'm talking about the crowdsourcing of ideas. One of the things I love with Houston and the different groups that I'm a part of in Houston is how powerful, and I said of Houston, I meant nationally, because I'm also on the board of Coffee Party USA and work with Daily Coast and all these other organizations, is when you see progressives in action with ideas. You know, at that point, it is no longer about, I want my ideas, I want our ideas. How can I fuse my idea into your idea? How can you fuse yours into mine? And because we have that fusion, it gives us that ability to move forward. What I'm going to do right now is I'm going to go to the boards and see if I have any commentary that I need to get to. We had a little change in the program. Like I said, the program belongs to us all. And just like Avi changed the program today because he needed to talk about local news, something that was on his heart because of what is happening right here in Houston with different papers that are disappearing. I don't know if you guys remember, we used to have, I think it was called then the Houston Post, I believe. Now we only have one newspaper. Is that crazy or what? Is that crazy or what? While I bring that up, I want to make my last, I better just wait till the end of the show to make our last pitch for asking people to become subscribers. What I'll do is I'll just go ahead and go to, because we're 10 minutes out, or looks like we're 9 minutes out. So let's go ahead and get to the room and start talking to my great folk out there. Folks, if you're just joining us, I ask you to please go ahead and share the program. That is how you can make a difference. That is how we can make a difference. Okay, let's see. It's pulling it up now on the page, and let's see, where do I start? Never know if to start to the bottom or to the top, so I'm going to assume. Michael Rudden, coltan mining gives me a lot of sadness. It's one of the aspects of automation I look forward to. As for beef consumption, it's the number one cause of deforestation, and actually quite a bit cause of greenhouse gases as well. Okay. Bruce says, Pollard says, soon I will begin personal visits encouraging people to vote. I will give my opinions and a rational argument, but in the end, we need a big turnout to decide where we're heading. Bruce Pollard, that is absolutely true, and thank you so kindly for being one of those who are going to be out there pushing and helping. And, come on the darn show anytime as well so that you can give your piece and encourage others to vote. Bruce Pollard said, we're done in Texas. I'm not sure I should visit another. Let's see. Bruce Pollard, getting people to vote in the Democratic primaries is what we really need to push. There's a bunch coming June 5th. Okay. Yeah, we're done in Texas for real. All right, let's see. Michael Rudden, I'm running forward. This one, I have no idea. I've been trying to sort out this exact problem of how to unify the left. I think, look, what we're doing here, I think the very most important thing is respect, right? I told all of you several stories about being a Bernie Sanders supporter and going to Philadelphia as one of Bernie Sanders' representatives. In other words, I was a Bernie Sanders delegate. But most of the people that sent me to, or a large percentage of the people who sent me to that, who helped me get there, were all Hillary Clinton supporters. Again, diametrically opposed. But what they sent was me. They knew that I was going to have the interests of us all at hand. In other words, neither the Bernie Sanders people or the Hillary people are my enemies at all. Just like the left-wingers, the right-wingers, none of them are my enemies. They're my human brothers and sisters. And they know that even if I disagree with them in something, that I have their back. Why am I saying that? Because, Brother Rudnin, what you have to go out there and realize is this. If people ultimately realize that you may be diametrically opposed to what they believe in, but they know you don't hate them. They know you don't want to put a spear in them. They know that if their kids are in trouble, no matter what the ideology is, you're going to be there to help them. Then their minds will be open to listen to you, but you have to first get to that first step, and that's what I'm trying. You try to get to that first step where they have some respect for you or some belief in you that you really want what's best. Not that you're some crazy ideologue. Even if you're speaking to a crazy ideologue, a lot of times, if in speaking with them, you can also change them. There's no place on the plantation for free speech. Jimmy Spice? I don't know what that means, but maybe you'll tell me someday. Both major parties play games, good cops, bad cops. It's a soap opera. That you're right about, Jimmy Spice. Humanity is unable to really evolve because powerful peoples have become dumbed down. In order to remove critical thinking, humanity and planet Earth will not survive at this level of destruction. Now, Jimmy Spice, that is a statement of the day. I haven't read all the rest yet, but that is a statement of the day. In Texas here, we've dumbed down the population. We've decimated education. We've done a whole lot of these things, and that is what we want in America. In America, the reason why we are always first to cut we're always first to cut education budgets. Take a look at in every state. Missouri, when they went through their crisis, it was the same thing. Kansas, same thing. Look at what Brownback did in Kansas. Finally, teachers are fighting back. Hell, Brownback was so bad, even Republicans came out against Brownback, a Republican. for the draconian cuts that he was making to education and elsewhere. So, your statement is the most, it is, and you're right about humanity. We have to get back to a place where we're educating our people again. And you know what? Education does not necessarily mean formal education, though, Jimmy Spice. My goal here is to say, Egberto Willies, Mr. Rudnin, Bruce Pollard, all you folks that are in this house right now, you're all educators, right? Because all these folks are not going to go back to college. They're not going to go back and unlearn the things they learn in some formal way. So what we do with programs like mine and programs that you will have or directions that you will guide is changing those folks who are already out. Make sure that they're still willing to learn. Tom Hines, good afternoon to you too, my friend. I have a show production. Talk later. Thank you very much for having been here, Jimmy Spice. It was great having you here. Humanity and planet will not survive at this level. Destruction, sadly, agreed. Oh, absolutely so. Let's see. Michael Rudnin, I say that the decline is a result of corporate consolidation over our media and the loss of fairness doctrine. All of that is true, Michael. Speaking of which, my favorite news aggregator is Dig. You know, I used to use Dig. I haven't used Dig in a while. I didn't even know they were still around, to be honest with you, my friend. Senor Ledo, that's your new tag. Let me see. I know Ledo is going to come at me at something. Ledo says, alternative news, alternative facts. Okay, whatever you say, my brother. Daniel Ledo, nope, that's the right wing bubble. Hello, yeah, I'm the right wing bubble. No, Ledo, you're just a good guy. PDR is my peeps. You bet your life PDR is your peeps. You're here every day, and I expect to see you every day, Mr. Ledo, because sometime we're gonna get through it, buddy. Terrorized for 2 years. Just who are the terrorists? Figure of speech, brother. All right, Michael Rudnin. It's as it comes to unifying the left, I try to focus on the issues that matter: getting big money corruption out of politics, forestalling, accelerating global warming, alleviating wealth inequality, remedying system racism. I couldn't agree with you more, Mr. Rudnin. And period of test, I only have the one. Does a majority of your campaign funding come from corporation? I absolutely so. Daniel Ledo, that's kind of insulting, Egberto, to say that I'm only thinking I am a right-winger. It seems to imply I'm not very self-aware or simply have not thought. I wasn't trying to be insulting, Ledo, but if for some reason those words insulted you, please accept my most sincere apology. You know where my heart is. Okay, you just think that Michael, but if you really thought about it, clearly you would realize your values are really conservative. Now, how is that less insulting than what I told you, my dear friend, Mr. Ledo? How is you telling Michael that any different than what I had to say? Come on now. All right, let's see. I'm going to go one more refresh before I go and close the show down. Let's go ahead and get one more refresh, see if anything else is on the line, and then we are going to close this program down with one last ask. Let's see. Okay, Laura Moser losing her primary saddened me to the end. Absolutely so. And, I had her on the program. Let's see. Bruce Pollard said, we're done. Oh, I read that one already. But yes, that one I took to heart as well, because again, it was what they did was horrendous. What the DCCC did was terrible. Anyway, folks, remember this is a call-in show, 646-715-5812. Of course, right now it's too late to do so, but please remember that in the future. Also, this is a progressive independent show. Independent media, that is what we do. I explain many times, if you really want to have a dialogue, if you really want to have input into the news that gets out there on air, if you really want to be a part of not only being told what you need to hear as news, but want to be a part of making everybody else know what is news, like we had Avi earlier call in and say people need to know about local news, like we have Rudnin call in several times and give his piece, Pollard. I mean, if you want to have interactive news where you can be a part of it, that is what Politics Done Right offer. We have our story of the day, and we definitely change it if that is so. If that is a desire of the audience that is listening at the time. For that, we ask you to become a subscriber. Patreon.com/Politics Done Right. Patreon.com/Politics Done Right. If you're listening on Blog Talk Radio, if you're listening on the Cuffhard Network, go ahead and go to Patreon. Patreon.com/Politics Done Right is the is the URL. If you're listening to it on Facebook Live, you can just click on the link, which is right here on the Facebook Live page. I want to thank René Perpetua, who was a donor yesterday, and several others I can't recall right off the top of my head, but I do appreciate all that you do to become subscribers, to support independent media, and to support programming that is intent. I'm not saying we're hoping to or we're wishing to. We have plans. We are intent on changing how things run. Folks, my name is Egberto Willies. This is Politics Done Right. Thank you so kindly for having spent this time with me. We could not do it without you. And guess what? You know what? I am out.
Welcome to Politics Done Right. I am your host, Egberto Willies. This is the progressive program that will take the mystery out of politics. This is the program that will encourage you to make sure government becomes we the people. Whether you are liberal, conservative, or otherwise, you get to air your point of view. Remember, you can also send me a tweet to EGBERTOWILLIES. That is at Egberto Willies. Let us engage. It is politics done right.
1, 2, 3, 4.